Hello, hello, welcome to the show. Welcome to Not Just Nintendo, a video game podcast that is about Nintendo. But it's not just Nintendo here at Not Just Nintendo, as we talk about other video games as well. Today is episode 14, and when you're seeing this, there are only 14 days as well. It's funny how that worked out, right? 14 days or 2 weeks until the Switch 2 comes out. For those who didn't hear, I made the announcement on the Discord. I didn't actually post anything on the community tab. I probably should have. But I did say on the Discord that the podcast was getting pushed over to Thursday. That's something that I've wanted to not push it. There's been many a times where I've probably needed to, and I've kind of pushed myself to try to get it out on a Wednesday, and usually it works out. This week, it was just not going to work out. It's been a busy week. I don't really want to get into exactly what happened, but I had a thing happen, and I don't. I'm not going to get into it. Family problems, but anyways, it's been a bit of a bit chaos. A bit of chaos. We've had some chaos, and so it's been tough. I haven't made a Super Mario RPG video in over a week now. I tried just the other day. What was it? Tuesday. Tuesday. I tried Tuesday to make a Super Mario RPG video, and my OBS was having problems, so it like froze like a little bit of the way through the recording. So I still have to go back to that video and see if I can recover the footage and like it corrupted, and I don't know how I'm gonna do all that. I'm gonna try to recover what I can and see if hopefully I haven't got rid of the saves on Super Mario RPG, and so hopefully I can try to not have stuff missing in the Let's Play. I'm a little concerned about that. I don't know. I'm not really sure exactly what to do in this situation, so I'm still thinking about that, and it's still a bit of a mess. But of course, it's been chaos. I haven't played any video games. I've got this parade coming up for marching band for Memorial Day. We've got I've still got almost a month of school, or actually, I've got like a month until final tests and stuff are done. Actually, a little bit more than a month till final tests are done. But as far as classes, I've only got a few weeks, so we're almost done. We're almost done. Things are wrapping up, so that's definitely nice, and it's gonna make things a lot easier to do the podcast, to do YouTube stuff, all this stuff. I mean, I really would like to get to doing some other bigger videos and stuff. I'm probably going to start working on it this week. I wanted to do some stuff on the Minecraft channel, and OBS has a problem where Minecraft doesn't work, and there's a workaround, and I tried the workaround, and I couldn't get the workaround to work around, and yeah, it's been a mess. It's been chaos. So I haven't been able to make videos. I've had a bunch of different problems come up, both time related and also software related. So hopefully I can get back to that. The Super Mario RPG Let's Play will hopefully continue, and there will also hopefully be other videos, bigger videos, all that stuff. Hopefully, I'm still, it's still in the works. I'm hoping that I can get that stuff going. So we're just gonna have to see what happens. I don't really know. I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen, to be honest. Um, Also, I'm sure this is not going to be any sort of shock whatsoever, but I have not filed those Xbox games that I was supposed to file still. Uh, I know, you're shocked, you're shocked. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, I have a video game collection, a lot of old games, some new ones, and I have a Google spreadsheet where I track all that, all the information about it, like the titles and the publishers and the release years and the consoles they're on and whether they're complete or loose or whatever. I have this for like all the consoles, all the companies of consoles, brands of consoles, except for Xbox. So I've done it for all the Atari stuff, all of the stuff where I just have a little bit, all the Magnavox stuff, all the Sega, Nintendo, Sony, and the one that I haven't done is Microsoft or Xbox. So I still need to get around to that. I need to finish filing the game collection, and then I can have a final tally of just how many games I own, because it's quite a few, as it turns out, quite a few video games I own. So. And I'm really curious to know, and I definitely need to get the list done before, at least before that video that I'm gonna make, where I show off the collection. I at least need to get it done before that because I don't know. I just think it would be good to do. I might even put a copy of the spreadsheet in the in the Discord or something. I don't know. I'm thinking about it so you guys can see it. We'll see what happens. I don't know if I'll actually end up doing that or not, but anyways, but I definitely want to get everything filed and stuff. I've been talking about for a few weeks here. I have a bunch of pop figures. I used to collect pop figures. I haven't bought new pop figures in years, but I have on my shelves, on the same shelf as many of my video games, I have pop figures everywhere, and they're on risers, and they're smushed together as much as possible to save more space for video games. But they still take up tons and tons of space that I could put towards video games if they weren't there. So I'm still trying to box those up. I think I'm going to start boxing those up this week. Put them in totes and stuff. I don't want to just get rid of them, throw them out or anything. I don't think they're going to be valuable, but they're at least have a little bit of value, I'm sure, at some point. And otherwise, I just think they're kind of neat to the point where one of these days I might regret if I get rid of them. So I'm gonna hold on to them at least for the time being. But I'm gonna box them up, most of them at least. I might keep a couple out, we'll see. But I think I'm gonna box them up. I'm gonna start doing that here soon, and then I'll have more space to put video game stuff. And it'll also be better when I do that collection tour. I'll have more stuff on the shelves because as it currently stands, I do have all the games on the shelves, but there's a lot in regards of consoles and a lot of broken consoles or a lot of extra controllers or things like that I'd kind of like to have displayed out on shelves, but I cannot because of the situation with the pop figures. So I'm currently looking into getting those gone, or moved, or that kind of stuff. So will that happen? I hope so. I don't know. Who knows, right? But yes, that's the plan. So hopefully, and I know I say this every week that I'm gonna do those Xbox games, but maybe this will actually be the week. Who knows? Who's to say, right? But I hope that this will be the week that I do those Xbox games, and maybe it'll be the week that I start doing the pop figure stuff as well. So we'll see what happens. I guess that's really where I should have left that. There's a lot still to be done in my room regarding the collection. So hopefully things will be looking nicer as time goes on. You never want stuff looking less nice. You always want it improving. Um, so yeah, I already touched on the fact that the podcast is late. I guess I can real quick plug the email. I still have not received any emails for the podcast. It's alright. I wasn't really expecting to. But if you have any questions, if you have any, I don't know, responses to anything I've said, any sort of things you want to ask me, anything like that, you can email the show at notjustnintendo@gmail.com. That is NOTJUSTNINTENDO@gmail.com. You can also comment on YouTube or on Spotify. Both of those have comment sections. And you can ask any questions or anything there as well. So you can also, while you're down in the description, if you're there, you can also join the community Discord. And if you're on Spotify and not on YouTube, you can go subscribe to me on YouTube. I make a bunch of other videos over there that have not a whole lot to do with the podcast. I guess they are video game related, so that's quite a bit to do with the podcast, but they could have more to do with the podcast, admittedly. But anyway, so the podcast is an extra thing. So if you're here from the podcast and you haven't watched my other stuff, then definitely be sure to do that. All right. Well, I guess with that said, because I haven't been playing games, I haven't beat anything. There's nothing for me to really talk about. I don't think I've even really played much of anything in the last week or so. There definitely are some things that I'm hoping to play. I have recently, I say recently, literally just today, like a couple hours ago, I heard about a game. I think it was like Sheepies or something. There was I guess it's a 2D platformer. It's free. I'm looking for it on Steam right now as we speak. So I'm going to try to stall while I look that up. I heard about this on my favorite podcast, the podcast I like to listen to the most, which is This Nintendo Life. You go listen to them. Big shout outs to them. Sheepy, a short adventure. A short adventure. There we go. That game, I heard about that just today, and apparently it is a short 2D platformer. And I've heard, at least from the podcast I listen to that I like, I've heard that it's pretty good. So I'm like, all right, sounds good. And so I definitely have some interest in that. So I'm kind of hoping to play that. I've heard it's only like 45 minutes to an hour, so maybe next week I'll talk about Sheepy, a short adventure. I'm also thinking of going back to Mario Kart 64. Maybe I can wrap that up. Otherwise, though, the Switch 2 is coming soon. I don't know if I'm going to get it right away, but I hope I'll get it fairly quickly. And the thing I need to play on there, on the Switch 1, is Ocarina of Time. I definitely need to try to finish Ocarina of Time before I get into Wind Waker. That's the plan right now. Those are the big things right now. I'm like Ocarina of Time, then Wind Waker when I get Switch 2. And also when I get Switch 2, I'm sure I'll be playing Mario Kart World and that kind of stuff as well. But the big thing for me right now is Wind Waker. Ocarina of Time, then Wind Waker. So I also part of the reason I want to finish Ocarina of Time so bad is because I'm like confident that it'll be on my top 50 games of all time, and I want to make that list sometime in July. So I'm gonna have to have a cutoff sometime probably in June. I'm gonna have to be like, all right, after this point, no more games can make this list. And so I'm guessing that Ocarina of Time will be one of the games I'll want on the list. So I need to make sure I beat it before I have to make that list. Otherwise, it won't be able to go on the list. So that's part of why I want to beat it as well. So there's a lot of reasons. Also, it's just one of those things where like Ocarina of Time is a game that, as a Nintendo fan and as a gaming fan in general, you kind of have to have played that game. Like unless you're just like completely like ignore everything retro. But it's just one of those ones you kind of have to have played to be in the conversation on like a lot of things. It's very well known. It's very well loved. And for good reason. It's a fantastic game, at least from what I've played of it. I guess we will get a little bit into some news and stuff. That's probably going to be most of today because, again, I don't have anything to talk about or anything specific to talk about. I'm sure, I'm quite a yapper, so I'm sure we'll find stuff to talk about. But whether it's actually going to be games and stuff like that I've beaten, it's not because I don't have any games that I've beaten. But you get what I'm saying. So the first thing, I pulled up a bunch of articles. Some of these things I'd already heard about. Some of them I hadn't, and I read through them if I hadn't heard about them. But basically, the reason I did this is so that I'd have a reminder of a lot of these things when I went on the podcast, and so I wouldn't forget stuff. So we have some fork knife news. That's what I like to call Fortnite. I like to call it fork knife because I don't like it. I've never played it. I just don't like the concept. So anyways, but Fortnite, I guess they're back on iOS stores. I heard about this, a few days ago or whatever. I don't know. It's been a little while. Um, Fortnite was off the App Store on iPhones. That was big news for a little while there, and I guess it's finally returned. Which, oh boy, wow! Now I can go download it. I'm so excited. I'm not a huge fan of Fortnite. I've never played it. I don't have any interest in playing it. I don't like a lot of online stuff. I don't like a lot of shooters, a lot of battle royale, any of that kind of stuff. A lot of things about it I don't like. I did hear something kind of funny though. Of course, there's a lot of Star Wars partnerships with Fortnite. I guess apparently there's a Darth Jar Jar skin, and I'm sure basically anybody but me would have a better idea and know more what they're talking about on this. But I guess there's a Darth Jar Jar skin in Fortnite, and Fork Knife, I should say. And I guess it's like basically impossible to get without cheating, which I find hilarious, and I'm sure it's probably going to cause more people to cheat than did before. So I can't imagine that was a great decision on Epic's part putting that in the game, but yeah, who knows, right? Maybe it's just to be funny, right? I guess it's not April though, so they did it on the wrong month. Also, Battlefront 3. I did hear some rumors about Star Wars Battlefront 3. Free? Wow, Battlefront 3, right? Battlefront 3 cannot talk for the life of me. I heard some rumors that supposedly DICE was making a Star Wars Battlefront 3, which is actually kind of surprising because I'd heard before that people were saying that they didn't think they were going to have a Battlefront 3, and Battlefront 2 was going to be the end of it. But now people are saying that Battlefront 3 is going to happen, and I don't know if it will or not, but we'll see. I know there's a petition for it. I was reading about that yesterday. There's a petition with like 2,000 signatures for people that want Battlefront 3 to happen. Which honestly, I haven't played Battlefront 2. I do have Battlefront 1 and 2, if I remember. Am I correct on that? Or maybe I just have one. Um, I could pull up my spreadsheet. I'm trying to look from my shelf, trying to look across my room to see if I have both. I think I do. Yeah, I definitely do. I have both games. All right, I have Battlefront 1 and 2, both on PS4. Um, and I plan to play through the campaign. I don't really have any intention of playing the online. I don't even know if I can play the online without a PlayStation Plus account. I'm not sure how that works for non-first party games, but even if I could play online, I don't really have any interest in playing online. I'm kind of not really not into that. But I would like to play the campaign for 1 and 2. So if Battlefront 3 comes out, then I'll probably play the campaign for that as well. And maybe I'll check out the online. We'll see. Like I said, I'm not like super into it, but maybe I'll at least check it out just to, give it give it a chance. I mean, to be fair though, I don't think this is actually happening. This is just a petition at this point. But I guess it does kind of tell EA that people are interested. So whether they actually do it or not, that's, who's to say, right? Apparently, the CEO of Gearbox, Randy Pitchford, he he told people that real fans of Borderlands will find a way to pay $80. Apparently, in an IGN interview. I know a lot of people were upset. Borderlands 4 is supposed to be coming out, and it's supposed to be $80. A lot of things are becoming $80. That's kind of becoming a standard. I think I talked a little bit about that last week. I've definitely talked a little bit about that in the last few weeks. And so, the funny thing is like with $80 games and stuff, I think it totally makes sense that we're going up. Am I happy about it? No, not necessarily, but it does make a lot of sense to me why we would be going up to $80. I don't think saying that real fans will find a way is really the best way of going about it, but I guess, whatevs, right? Because at the end of the day, I do think a lot of the people are just whining, about these expensive games and stuff. To be fair, a lot of these people are the same people that have Game Pass and have subscriptions like that where they save like hundreds of dollars on games, and here they are still complaining about the prices of them. I'm like, you guys, you're getting this stuff for like $20 a month. You're playing hundreds of dollars worth of games. You're still gonna sit here and complain that they retail for $80. I mean, come on, people. Like, you can't be complaining when you're not even like affected directly. I don't know. I don't know that Borderlands is coming to Game Pass, but even if it's not Borderlands, I just mean in general, a lot of these things do come to Game Pass. I guess Nintendo's opening a new store. I guess I think it's in Tokyo, maybe it's in Osaka. I don't know, one of those cities in Japan. Who cares, right? There's a Nintendo store. There's actually a few in Japan, and there's the one in New York. I think there might even be one in London now, or maybe in Munich. I don't know. It's somewhere in Europe. There's a few Nintendo stores now, but I know in Tokyo or in Osaka, one of those places, there's also a Capcom store that opened just in the last couple of years, and the Sega store that opened in the last couple of years. And it is kind of an interesting idea to have a store like that with merchandise. I know Nintendo's had their stores for quite a long time at this point, but to see other publishers like your Capcoms of the worlds and your Segas of the worlds doing the same kind of idea, having a store full of merchandise, is pretty cool. And if I ever go to Japan, I'll definitely stop at all those stores. Maybe at that point we'll have like a Bandai Namco store, Konami store, right? I mean, get whatever store you want. Maybe we'll have like a, I don't know, Sunsoft store. Like who cares, right? Get whatever store we can take. But yes, I guess Nintendo is continuing to open new stores, which is cool. Maybe we can get Nintendo stores all over the place. That would be great. I know Nintendo's done a lot more stuff. They've had these stores they've opened. They had the Super Nintendo World in Universal Studios. They had the Nintendo Museum they've just opened. So there's a lot more, Nintendo facing out to the public and doing things like that. That we've seen lately, and I think them expanding their stores outside of just those few there in Japan is definitely, I think it's a good idea. I mean, I don't know, maybe there's people at Nintendo with the information as to some analytics and stuff that kind of obviously there must be somebody that's like, hey, this is a good idea. But me, as the armchair CEO, also believes that opening new stores and stuff like that is probably a good idea for them. And personally, I'd love if they opened one right across the street from me. Uh, you put them wherever you want, right? Nintendo, get them out here, get them everywhere. We'll get one in like every city. Every city's got its own Nintendo store. That would be great. Obviously, it's not realistic, but who cares about realism, right? I guess I can also say I just read this. Actually, while I was recording this, I stopped here and I've just read this. Apparently, Mario Kart World is adding a bunch more racers than I thought. There's a bunch that I hadn't heard that have been in some of the trailers and stuff. I just hadn't personally noticed them, and I'm just now hearing about them. So I didn't even realize all these were here. I knew about some of these. Apparently, these are all actually characters you're going to be able to race. So, of course, there's the cow. These are just the ones that aren't like Mario characters. Well, they are Mario characters. They're not like the regular Mario characters. They're all like newcomers. Of course, there's the cow. Everybody's been talking about the cow. There's a Cataquack. I did not realize you're going to be able to race as a Cataquack. There's a charging truck, a cheap, a coin coffer. Those are like those green things. Conchor, Dolphin, Fishbone, Goomba, Hammerbro, King Boo, Monty Mole, Nabbit, Bud, Peepa, Penguin, sorry, Pianta, Piranha Plant, Pokey, Rocky Wrench, Sidestepper, Snowman, Spike, Stingbee, and Swoop. So all of these like enemies and Nabbit from past games are apparently now going to be playable in Mario Kart World, which is very surprising. I actually had not noticed a lot of these in the initial trailers and stuff. Of course, everybody noticed the cow. I did not realize all of these enemies were here. I did realize some of them, like the Goombas and stuff. I do find it very surprising that you're going to be able to play as so many of these enemies. I imagine like the cow will be a big online. I imagine the Pianta will be big online. Probably a lot of people want to play as a Pianta, I imagine. So a lot of these things, like the Snowman, will probably be pretty big online too. You know, a lot of these things are going to be very memeable. But yes, I just, I've been pretty negative on Mario Kart World, like overall, I would say. But I just heard about that, and I actually think it's going to be kind of interesting being able to play as some of these, other Mario enemies and stuff. You've been able to play as like a Koopa Troopa for a long time, but now to be able to play as all sorts of these other characters, like a Goomba, like a cow, for some reason, all this stuff is actually going to be pretty neat, I think. So I don't know if everybody else has noticed the same things about a lot of these characters and stuff, but I had not personally noticed a lot of these things, and now to have heard about them is pretty neat, if you ask me. And you didn't ask me, but I'm gonna, I'm gonna answer anyways because that's how I go. Also, I just found like the greatest third-party peripheral for a Nintendo console, like of all time. If you haven't seen this thing, you've got to go look at it. It's not even out yet. Hori has made a Nintendo Switch 2 camera. Of course, the cameras that are going to be used for like the online stuff. They're making another Switch 2 camera that you can get like as an alternative to the like regular black one. That is a piranha plant camera with the camera itself being in the piranha plant's mouth. Which, by the way, coolest thing I've ever seen. It's only $60. It's actually cheaper than the regular Switch 2 camera, and it almost makes me want to get this one. And I think if I was gonna get a Switch 2 camera, which I don't think I am, but if I do, I honestly think I might just get this camera. I think it's actually cheaper than the other camera, right? I'm pretty sure. Oh no, I guess it's only $5 more. Okay, well, fine. Even still, though, I would definitely buy the Piranha Plant camera over the official camera if it's only $5 more, because that thing looks amazing. I've also got to say, I was reading about apparently there was some developer interview for Mario Kart World on the Nintendo website, and apparently Mario Kart World was originally developed for the Switch One, or it started that way. They started development around the same time that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe came out, which was 2017. I think it was in April of 2017 that that came out. And around that time, they started working on Mario Kart World for Switch, and they transitioned it to Switch 2 in 2020. So they've been working on this game the whole time, and because we've been asking for all these years, like, what's the Mario Kart team doing? What are they doing? Um, and as it turns out, they've literally been working on Mario Kart World this entire time. Because originally it was for Switch One, and then for the last 5 years they've been working on it for Switch Two. So that I think that's honestly incredible. I did not expect that that was um, all they had been doing. I kind of thought maybe they had some other projects fall through or something. I mean, maybe they still could have, but it definitely seems like that has been their main focus for quite a long time. And I mean, it does make sense. You've got development cycles across the board much longer than they've historically been. So I think it makes a lot of sense that that's the case. So, I mean, it's not terribly surprising, but I guess it is surprising in a way that we heard this information directly from Nintendo. Like, usually, this kind of thing on a Nintendo game, if we were to hear about the development cycle on a Nintendo game, most times we hear it from other sources, from leakers, from, speculator. I mean, speculation isn't really, as set in stone because it's purely speculation, but, from leakers and from insiders and that kind of stuff is usually where we hear this stuff, and we also usually hear it like long after the game comes out. But no, in this case, we're hearing about it from Nintendo before the game comes out, which is definitely a change. I mean, I think I like when Nintendo gives us more info on stuff, but I also respect when they don't. I'm not somebody who's here like all like bummed out. I mean, I guess on a time or two, right? But generally speaking, I understand when they don't like to give out information like that. It makes a lot of sense, For I mean, for a lot of different reasons. I think big that's a big part of their brand image. Is they don't like to have a face on a lot of their stuff. They're very traditional, I guess. I don't know. They're very strange. They're a strange company, that's for sure. But it only makes them all the more interesting. Alright, so I'm here now the day that this is supposed to go out. It's now Thursday. This podcast episode's already a day late, so I don't want to make it any later, so I need to get this done today. I was just thinking about, because of course I've had a little bit of time since I was recording this last to kind of think of some more things to talk about, and I really didn't come up with anything too groundbreaking, but I was kind of thinking, I just think it's really something that I don't hear stressed enough, but it really has kind of hit me, like, how crazy is it that we're about to be in the 10th generation of video game consoles? Because I think most people are going to agree that the Switch 2 is Generation 10. I know, even just a couple years ago, I remember when I was, like, looking up, lists of video game consoles and stuff, I would see that a lot of people still put the Switch as an 8th generation console, which I don't think is genuine. I think the Switch clearly is a 9th generation console, and I think the only reason that they put it as an 8th generation console because they considered it the last 8th generation console rather than the first 9th generation console, even though it came out, in the transition period for the other two companies. And I think the only reason they did that is because the Switch was so weak in comparison to even the 8th generation consoles, but especially to the 9th generation consoles. And I don't think power should really have anything to do with what generation a console's considered. And I do think, at least percentage-wise, Nintendo is closing the gap a little bit here this generation, power-wise. Of course, it's one of those things where the actual value, right, like one teraflop that the Switch has, like a teraflop and a half, I think, versus like the 10 that the PS5 has, right? It's like a 9 teraflop difference. But if the PS6 comes out and it has 20 or 25, and the Switch 2 has 4, well, then rather than a tenth of the power, it has a fifth of the power, even though it's actually 20 teraflops behind. It's just how math works, right? It's exponential. The power growth is exponential, at least in amount of teraflops. Maybe not in practice, right? Maybe you don't always notice the prices going up steadily, or the power going up steadily, but the numerical value, which is the teraflops, those do go up at an exponential rate as we gain new technologies, and as technologies become cheaper, and as they're able to pack more things, and as there becomes a necessity to pack more things into new consoles. So I don't know, but certainly Nintendo, even if they are numerically farther behind, they are actually closer this generation. They're going to be closer, I guess, unless the PS6 comes out with 100 teraflops, which is, I would say, probably not possible. But who knows, No, I mean, I doubt it could get more than like 30. But anyways, so teraflops really aren't the main thing at the end of the day. It doesn't really matter. There's still plenty of things that run fantastic on Switch, even though it's a tenth of the power of the other consoles. And there's still things that run like garbage on PlayStation and Xbox, even though it's 10 times as powerful as the Switch. So really it comes down to optimization of the game, optimization of the software, not the software, the hardware, all that stuff is really what it boils down to. But yeah, I've really been thinking about it a lot over the last few days, like that we're about to be in the 10th generation of consoles. The first generation, that was obviously had arcade machines and stuff, but you also had like the Magnavox Odyssey and like the Fairchild Channel F and that kind of stuff. The second generation is highlighted by the Atari 2600 and the Intellivision. I would say the ColecoVision, I believe, is also part part of that. Of course, the third generation was NES and Sega Master System and that kind of thing. Although I will say I've heard from different sources, some people actually consider the NES to still be a second generation console, and they consider the third generation to just be the Master System and the Atari 7800. But honestly, I would think you would have to count NES as third generation. That makes more sense to me. Um, and then fourth generation, that's like Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, TurboGrafx. I think maybe even the Neo Geo falls in fourth generation. Fifth generation is like the Atari Jaguar, the PlayStation, the Saturn, the 64. I guess you could even put in like the, I don't know, like the 3DO. Anybody care about the 3DO? Sixth generation, of course, being the Dreamcast, PS2, Xbox, and GameCube. And then the seventh generation was the Wii, the Xbox 360, the PS3. Eighth generation, the Wii U, the Switch. Well, some people consider the Switch. I would not. But the Wii U, the Xbox One, and the PS4. And then, of course, the ninth generation being the Switch, I would say, and then the PS5 and the Xbox Series X and S, both, as a one collective. And the 10th generation will end up being the Switch 2, and then presumably PlayStation 6, unless they, change it up, but I highly doubt it. And then Xbox, I know there have been some rumors. These are pretty old rumors at this point, so I don't know if this is at all still happening, but I know at one point the rumor was that they were going to call it the Xbox Prime, which, by the way, Xbox Prime, absolutely terrible name. Like, I couldn't think of a worse name for another Xbox, but, the Xbox One is pretty bad, though, if we're being honest. So, who knows? They've always had really terrible names. I guess, the original one, the Xbox, that's kind of neat, right? But the 360, it's always been a bad name. The Xbox One's always been a bad name. And the Xbox Series X and S, those are bad names, too. They just don't, they never have had good names. I think Nintendo does have good names. I know a lot of people complain about the Wii U. I still think the Wii U is much better than the Xbox 360 or the Xbox One. Maybe the Xbox Series X and S are better than the Wii U, or at least on par. But yeah, I still think Nintendo has a much better track record on most of their naming. And of course, I mean, PlayStation, it's pretty basic, the naming convention, but at least it works, right? Personally, I think it'd be kind of neat if they had their own names, each console. But it does work, you can't really complain about it too much. It's effective. So, it is what it is, right? But yeah, I would say Microsoft's naming strategy is not the most effective. But I mean, really, who cares? It's not the end of the world. Most people, will just call it the new Nintendo or the new Xbox or the new PlayStation. There's not really as much of the like. A lot of people don't even really think about the names or anything very much. It's only for the hardcore people like myself. I'm just so hardcore over here. Um, but anyways, so not really important though. So this just came out, I think, just today. Um, been talking about this. Xbox, right? The Xbox Game Pass. I've been complaining about Xbox Game Pass for weeks, actually for much longer than. Oh no, this came out yesterday. Sorry, I missed this yesterday. I've been obviously complaining about Xbox for a long time, but now a lot of people have joined the bandwagon recently. There's a lot of reasons to not like Xbox. One of the biggest things here recently has been Game Pass and how there's always been more games removed every month than there are added. This has been a thing for, I would say, at least this whole year. I think it was kind of happening last year as well. But especially this year, you'll be like, okay, 5 new games coming to Xbox Game Pass, and then below it'll be like, and 17 leaving. It's like, okay, well, I mean, that's cool that there's 5 new games, but I really wish the 17 weren't leaving. Now, that said, I don't even buy Game Pass, so who am I to complain? But at the same time, I do think that, it's still pretty negative for the industry if, you have companies out there, and that doesn't do wonders for their brand image. And I personally, even if I don't like the Xbox image, I don't really want Microsoft to go away because, well, maybe I do. I don't know. I go back and forth, right? I mean, I think Microsoft has done a lot of harm for the game industry. Maybe they've done a few good things here and there. Generally, I would say they've done more harm than good. But at the same time, I do want more competition. So if they're suddenly gone, then I would hope at least that somebody would come in and take their place. And I do think that most people that could possibly take their place, or most companies, I should say, most companies that could possibly take their place would probably end up being even more harmful for the industry than Microsoft has been, at least in my opinion. I know, like, if Microsoft bowed out, I would guess that big tech companies, like especially Amazon, I'd be a little concerned, might hop in. I don't know if they'd necessarily make a console, but they would at least be the next big thing. Like whether they just have a subscription service or what exactly they do, who's to say? I mean, we haven't lost a company in the game space, a big, like a console manufacturer in the game space in a long time. Really, the last big one obviously was Sega, and the Dreamcast came out in what, 2001? Or no, actually 1999. Now that I think about it, maybe it's 98. I don't know. I'm getting things backwards. I was thinking of the GameCube and the Xbox. They were 2001. PlayStation 2 was 99. I want to say it was 2000 though over here, and then I want to say the Dreamcast was maybe 98 in Japan, 99 here. But anyways, it was in that area. But it's been that long since a company bowed out. And even still, I mean, there were games coming to Dreamcast until a few years in. So, you know, I would say really PlayStation or Sega bowed out in 2001, 2002, maybe even 2003. You could push it. But anyways, it doesn't really matter. I guess what I'm saying is, we don't. That doesn't tend to happen. So who's to really to say if Microsoft did suddenly bow out? Not that I think they will. I think there's maybe a chance. I think they're a little less healthy than Nintendo and PlayStation. Like I would say, in 20 years, I'm like absolutely certain. Well, maybe I shouldn't say absolutely certain, but I'm like with 95% certainty, I can say that PlayStation and Nintendo will probably both still be around in 20 years. Whether they're relevant, who knows, right? I mean, 40, you don't know. But I think 20 years, even though that's kind of a long time, I imagine both those companies will persist. Now, whether the Xbox is around in 20 years, honestly, I'm not super convinced. I'd say it's like a 50-50. In the next 10 years, I'd say it's like a 75-25. Like I could really see them going real soon. But I mean, really, again, like I said, who's to say? I mean, I don't. I'm not like some analyst, even if I like to think I am. So at the end of the day, maybe there's people that would have a better idea of where they might be heading. And obviously, Microsoft would probably have a pretty good idea too. They would probably be like, oh, things aren't working so well. But anyways, I guess the reason I brought this up in the first place is, every time they come out with new they announce new things for Game Pass, they're always losing tons of games. And so I guess, they've been getting enough complaints and stuff from their investors that they're like, fine, fine, we've got a solution just for you guys. And so here they are, Microsoft adding like 50 games to Game Pass. Freaking great, right? I mean, oh my gosh, 50 games. Wow, 50 games. They're adding 50 games. What wonderful games. What quality games that will, give you lots and lots of playtime that are just so good. What kind of amazing things are they adding to Xbox Game Pass? Well, let me tell you. It's Atari games. They're adding Atari 2600 games to the Xbox Game Pass. And here's the thing. Nothing. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong. Well, maybe I should say that, but there are some interesting things about playing Atari 2600 games, and it's not that I don't think they should be on the service. They can come to the service, but really at the end of the day, I think it's kind of crazy how they can be like, oh, man, look at all these new games that are coming to Game Pass. I think they should just be a separate thing. There should be one game coming to Game Pass, which is the Activision Classic Collection. And then all these games that from the Atari 2600 should be on that thing, instead of putting them all separate, just to fill space in the library. Because now, they're probably out there boasting that they had 50 more games now than they did before, or whatever their number was, maybe it was 250, now they're like, oh, now we have 300 games. I'm like, I mean, do you really? I mean, yes, technically there are 300 games now, whatever it is, I don't know the number. But at the end of the day, can we really count all these? I mean, the first one on the list is freaking Activision Prototype number 1. Activision Prototype number 1. What a catchy name, right? No, I'm kidding. Obviously, it's just a prototype. But you know what I'm saying? Like, they can't be, like, putting all these out here and expecting people to suddenly be content with the additions to Game Pass. The vast majority of people aren't going to care, like, at all about, like, any of these. Like, absolutely not a care in the world about any of these. Like I just like I just said it, but again, I mean, if I had Game Pass, maybe I'd check them out. I'd check like one now. I'd be like, oh, okay, just to kind of see how well the, you know, emulation and the integration and stuff was. And I'm like, that's neat and stuff, but like, who really do you think is gonna go through and like play through all these games? Probably nobody. Like 5 people. I mean, certainly it's cool. Like there are a lot of people out there that are nostalgic for Atari stuff. Personally, I appreciate some old Atari stuff, even though I'm not like nostalgic for it, right? That said, who's gonna be interested into this? Like very few people. And I think it's incredibly misleading. And maybe if they had just done this as a side extra thing and they were still, putting out tons of games on Game Pass, maybe it would be acceptable. But because they're doing this clearly as just a way to try to divert attention from the fact that they're removing everything off Game Pass, definitely doesn't sit right with me. And I haven't personally heard other people complain about it, but I really haven't heard many people talking about this. Probably because it's like such not a big deal. I mean, like who even cares? Like, oh great, Atari games coming to the Xbox Game Pass. I'm so thrilled. So of course, there's Activision prototype number one, Atlantis and Atlantis 2, Barnstorming. I read that as brainstorming, and I was like, I don't remember brainstorming. I don't remember barnstorming either, but who knows? Baseball, Beam Rider, Bloody Human Freeway, Boxing, Bridge, Caesar 2, Checkers, Chopper Command, which by the way, Chopper Command, quite a good game. Commando, Conquest of the Longbow, The Legend of Robin Hood, Cosmic Arc, Crackpot, Decathlon, Demon Attack, Dolphin, Dragster, Enduro, Fathom, Firefighter, Fishing Derby, Freddy Farkas, Frontier Pharmacist, Freeway, Grand Prix, Hero, Kaboom, Laser Blast, Mech Warrior 2, Megamania, Pitfall 2, Pitfall 1, I don't know why those are out of order, Police Quest 1, Pressure Cooker, Riddle of the Sphinx, River Raid 2, Robot Tanks, Sky Jinx, Space Quest 2, Space Quest 6, Space Treat Deluxe, Spider Fighter, Star Voyager, Tennis, The Adventures of Willie Beamish, The Dagger of Amun-Ra, Walker, Title Match Pro Wrestling, Torrens Passage, Trickshot, Vault Assault, Venetian Blinds, Zork 1, Zork 0, Frostbite, and Quest for Glory 1. All these games are now coming. I don't know if they're coming right away or if they're coming soon or whatever. I don't know. They're coming. They're coming. Who even cares, right? Because no one's going to play them. But yes, if you ever wanted to play Robot Tank on the Atari 2600, or if you ever wanted to play Crackpots for whatever reason, maybe you're on crack and you just like, you know what? I want to play me some Crackpots. If you're ever into that kind of stuff, then you can boot up Xbox Game Pass and go play them. And I mean, like, I guess, why not put these on here, right? I mean, they have Activision now. They've had Activision for a couple years, actually. But, especially having got that IP in recent years, it kind of makes sense that they would go do all this stuff. But I can't say I don't wish that they would have maybe, I don't know, had this as a supplemental thing. Maybe put one game in as the Activision Classic Collection or something, and have it be all these games in one. Instead of, putting them all separately just to try to fill out the catalog. I guess that's my point here, is I'm just not happy about the way they've advertised this. I mean, it's not like they're lying, right? I mean, there are 50 games. They are all unique. It's not like they're all, the same thing. However, they're not really what I think most Game Pass subscribers are probably expecting. And who knows? I mean, if you're a Game Pass subscriber and you're totally, like, thrilled for this, then I'm not trying to take anything away from you. That's cool. I'm happy for you. But I would say that the vast majority of Game Pass people probably should not be happy about this because, like, really? Like, they're gonna, oh, great, you've taken away 94 games this year. I don't know the number. But you've gave us 50 Atari games, so that makes up for it. Like, no, that's stupid. That's, like, ridiculous. So, I don't know. Maybe I should just stop complaining, but I like to complain a lot, so, it is what it is. And I do think, Microsoft is worthy of a lot of the complaints that I give them. So, and if you disagree, then, well, sorry. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. Anyways, so I know this is like the shortest podcast episode in history, but I really would like to get this out, and I'm really, really short on ideas. I do think next episode will be back to at least an hour. I'm not going to promise an hour and a half anymore because I'm not convinced that most of these episodes are going to end up being an hour and a half. But at the very least, I'd like to still get an hour if possible. I know I'm saying that as here I am having a podcast episode that's not going to be an hour. But I also don't want to just, put things out just for the sake of putting things out. I would like to at least have some sort of, I don't know, some semblance of logic behind why I put something out. And so I'm going to wrap this up here. I'll once again plug the email. You can send any questions you may have to the email for the podcast. That is notjustnintendo@gmail.com, notjustnintendo@gmail.com. You can also join the community Discord and have a little chat in there. It's always fun in the community Discord. If you're on Spotify and you're not on YouTube, then you can go subscribe to the YouTube channel. I would definitely appreciate the support over there. I'm hoping to have some big videos again, but I've been a little busy. I'm going to work a bunch on the Xbox games and on the pop figures that I was talking about earlier, and I'm going to be back to playing some games. I'm hoping to play through that Sheep platformer, and also maybe... I'm not going to spoil it. There's another game on PC that was free on Epic a while ago that I'm thinking of playing through. In the next week. And otherwise, I'll probably go back to Mario Kart 64, Ocarina of Time. Maybe I'll finally go back to Astrobot. I've been wanting to go back to Astrobot. So I've definitely got a lot of big plans. Whether I'm actually going to do some of those plans remains to be seen. But I guess we'll just have to see what happens, right? Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. I know this was a short episode. I know a lot of the episodes have been shorter lately, but again, I'm hoping to get them at least back up to an hour. I really should probably get some of my friends from school and talk with them for an episode. I think that would be a good thing. I'll get them on individually. I'll get a guest on here with people I know. I know a couple people already wanted to do it, and I was like, I don't know, man. But I think at this point, what's the worst that could happen, right? The episode's garbage. Well, this one is too, so... anyways. I guess that's enough of me. You guys are all sick of me by now. You actually were probably all sick of me 40 minutes ago. But I guess I will now take my leave. Goodbye. See you next week. 14 days! 14 days till Switch 2. Everyone be excited. Actually, you know what? Before we go... Isn't that crazy? Next week, there's only going to be 7 days. Or actually, if I put the episode out on Wednesday again, I guess it'll be, 8 days? It'll be 8 days. But still, I mean, that's, really not many days. So, that's pretty cool. I'll see you all then, and goodbye.